Welcome to a special look at the top 5 moments in Broncos playoff history.
That's right.
Not counting Super Bowl wins. Those go without saying. When you win Super Bowl 32, you win Super Bowl 33, you win Super Bowl 50, those are the biggest moments. But what are the moments that happen in the playoffs that stand the test of time, that Broncos country remembers like it was yesterday? We, of course, understand every list. You may agree, you may disagree, but we picked our top 5 moments from the postseason, again, not counting the Super Bowl wins or even the 5 Super Bowl losses. So we will start, Nate, with a play that you were on the sideline for in the AFC divisional round. I'm sorry, the AFC divisional round.
Yep.
The
2005
season.
Yep.
You've got the Patriots and Bill Belichick and Tom Brady in town to take on you and Jake Plummer and Champ Bailey.
Yeah.
And the Patriots and the Broncos here at Mile High. And as Tom Brady, which we would see for the next decade and a half, 2 decades, continue to do, was driving them down the field, Champ Bailey had something to say about it and decided to let Tom Brady know that he had not fully arrived just yet. This is Champ Bailey's time.
Coming after Brady, gets it away, he's picked. He's picked in the end zone. It's Bailey. Bailey taken off, and he gets away from the one man who had a shot at him. Talk about a game changer. Bailey, is he in or not? Running it back 100 yards before Watson comes in at the last minute.
And so Champ jumps in front of a pass at the goal line.
Yep, so what happened was the defense rotated and brought some pressure. Our friend Nick Ferguson came on a safety blitz off the right-hand side, put pressure on Tom Brady and forced him. Well, he didn't force him, but Tom Brady threw it right into rotated coverage. Champ Bailey steps right in front of it, and I have never heard in Power Field, we called it Invesco Field back then, so loud as in that moment. Champ Bailey, our all-world cornerback who was having a fantastic season that season, and Tom Brady and the New England Patriots who, won 6 Super Bowls together. But Mike Shanahan had Bill Belichick's number. And I think Mike Shanahan has a winning record against Bill Belichick. No other coaches do, if I'm correct about that, Brandon. But this particular play was an incredible, joyful moment here in Denver as he ran down the sidelines. I was standing there on the sidelines. We were all jumping for joy. We thought he was about to score a touchdown. Of course, he gets hawked at the 1-yard line because Nick Ferguson didn't peel back inside and look for a blocker, but Ben Watson, a tight end who was on the opposite side of the field, really got on his horse, as they say, and hustled down to make that play. But a fantastic play, picking off Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and sending the Patriots home for the season, and a fantastic play there in Broncos history.
Well, and just to remind everybody, it was 10-6. You guys are leading, but they're knocking on the door. They're at the 5-yard line. They're about to take the lead. Instead, Champ returns it. Of course, the crazy play by Ben Watson that keeps Champ from getting into the end zone. You guys would punch it in after that and go on to win 27-13. The Patriots can only muster one more score, and that would advance you to the AFC title game where you would face.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about the game that followed that, but that moment itself is good enough to land at number 5.
At number 4, we're going to stick with the team that you did see the next week, a different version of them, though. The Steelers were in town, 2011. We all remember Tebow time and what a miraculous season it was in parts, despite the Broncos losing their final 3 games. They still win the AFC West that year and get to host the wild card round against the Steelers. And so the Steelers come to town. Tim Tebow was not great in that game, but they're able to force overtime with really good defense. And then on the very first play of overtime where Dick LeBeau and Mike Tomlin, the Steelers, were daring Tim Tebow to beat him.
Yeah.
And they're playing, man, super close?
I think they blitzed. It was cover 0. Yeah. They left nobody back there. I think they brought Troy Polamalu or something like that, as we're seeing here as this clip's going to play. But Tim Tebow, who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn all day long, first play of that game. I was at the stadium. I don't know, you probably were there because you were covering it, but I was there as a former player sitting up in the alumni suite, and everyone was as surprised. Everyone was equally surprised that not only that pass was completed for a touchdown, but Tim Tebow was able to throw an accurate post pattern. We hadn't seen that all year almost from Tim Tebow, but he did the very first play of overtime. And Demaryius Thomas God rest his soul, out there bringing Broncos country to their feet. And one of the most, I talked about Champ Bailey's thing being the loudest I had ever heard that stadium until that moment.
The Broncos have been in 3 overtime games this year. They won them all.
Got him.
Got him at the 40. It's Thomas at the 50. Stiff arm got him free to the 30, to the 20. Thomas to the 10. Denver's going on to New England. They win it on the first play of overtime.
That was the loudest I had ever heard that stadium, and we were jumping for joy in the alumni suite, hugging each other as former players, just happy for that moment.
Yeah, as he gets separation from Ike Taylor and then is able to stiff arm Ike, and DT does the rest. It was a really good pass from Tim Tebow, a better catch and run after the catch from DT, and that's why he'll always, one of the many reasons he'll always be so fondly remembered here in Broncos country. We know he's high up top the record books with your pal Rod Smith, but what a magical play.
And an inexplicable defensive call by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just opening it up for you. Just go for it. I mean, yeah, you don't respect Tim Tebow at all, but you do have to respect these professional athletes and their ability to get down the middle of the field.
All right, let's get to number 3. We are going to stay in that division.
Yeah.
And as you can guess, there's probably the Browns being featured on this list not once but twice. Here's the first time, and that's at number 3 with the play dubbed the Fumble, where the Broncos were up 38-33 in the AFC Championship game. That game was in Denver. The year before they played in Cleveland. That game's in Denver. The Broncos had come off a loss in the Super Bowl to the Giants. They're looking to get back there and maybe rewrite the outcome. 38-31, a minute 12 to play, and the Browns are about to tie it up. Ernest Biner looks like he's going in for the game-tying score, and then Jeremiah Castile strips the ball right on the 1-yard line. The Broncos recover and are able to hold on and win the game and go to a second Super Bowl in a row, dashing the hopes of the Browns, who, believe it or not, to this day have still never made it to a Super Bowl, and they will not make it this year either.
Draw to Biner. Ernest Biner.
Fumble.
Fumble the ball, and Denver has recovered. Oh, my. Or have they? Let's wait for the official to unpile them.
There's a war going on under that stack.
There it is. Denver's ball at the 2-yard line.
The fumble, and Ernest Biner, who's a really good running back, made some Pro Bowls and was as big a key to that offense. He and Bernie Kosar, for him to lose the ball there, for the Broncos to make a heck of a play, it was as memorable as a play you can remember on the defensive side, maybe this side of that Champ Bailey pick 6 here.
Yeah, an incredible play in Broncos lore and Broncos history, and also just such an unfortunate play for Ernest Biner, because you hear the name Ernest Biner, and what do you think of? You don't think of the Pro Bowls, you don't think of the good years he had, you think of the fumble. And it's just funny how one bad play can dog your reputation and be the thing that everyone thinks about when they hear your name. At least, maybe, I'm sure it happens in Cleveland as well. People hear Ernest Biner, they don't think of all the hard work. They don't think of all the excellent plays and the longevity. They think of the fumble, that fumble, which was play number 3. How about number 2?
Number 2 isn't necessarily a play, but we said this is top 5 moments, counting the Super Bowl wins.
Got it.
And so I think we need to go all the way back to 1977.
Wow. The
Orange Crush defense, now Hall of Famer Randy Gradishar, and a number of Ring of Famers, Tom Jackson, Louis Wright, we could keep going, Billy Thompson, Tombstone Jackson, among others. I'm pretty sure Tombstone was on that team. Either way, the Broncos had never even been to the playoffs. Franchise from 1960 to 1977. You talk about a playoff drought, they'd never even been to the postseason. Because of the way the playoffs used to work then, and you had 3 divisions, you would not play the team from your same division in the wild card round. Because the Raiders were the 4 seed, the Broncos were the 1 seed. The Broncos get past the Steelers here at Old Mile High, and then they welcome in their division rival Raiders and John Madden, and they're able, with Craig Morton and company and that Orange Crush defense, to make the day tough for Kenny Stabler. They knock Fred Biletnikoff, the Hall of Famer, out of the game. He was in year 13. He separates his shoulder.
Ouch.
I think Dave Casper had a good game. I want to say Hall of Fame tight end for the Raiders. A lot of Hall of Famers on both sides of the ball for the Raiders, but the Broncos, who at the time with that Orange Crush D and no Hall of Famers then, they had their way with them, and they end up holding on to win 20-17, and it sent them to their first ever Super Bowl.
Play fake, then looked left.
hitting Moses in stride. Moses kept both feet in bounds, then high-stepped it home. The Broncos' 20-17 victory in the AFC Championship game continues a dream season for all those under the spell of Bronco mania. For the Raiders, their reign as world champions is over, but they wore their crown well.
Yeah, and the Broncos had a lot of really bad years prior to that. I mean, the 60s were a tough time for the Denver Broncos, and even the front half of the 70s until they started figuring it out. And the Raiders were the crown jewel of the AFL and then the NFL under Al Davis and the merger, and they were really good for a long period of time. People forget how good the Raiders were and how much of a rivalry that was. And so when people talk about the rivalry between the Broncos and the Raiders, and is it even a rivalry? Well, yeah, it is. It's been going on for darn near, 60 years
5
now?
years now, 65
yeah,
years.
And that was, I guess, probably the moment the Broncos finally
Made it
got
a
over.
rivalry.
Yeah, exactly. Hit back for the first time. What a moment that was for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, and it took them to their first Super Bowl. We know Super Bowl 12 didn't go great. I was born in Dallas a few months after, so that had nothing to do with anything. The Cowboys won the game 27-10, but as Tom Jackson reminded me at Randy Gradishar's Hall of Fame this past summer, they turned the ball over 8 times and lost 27-10. So if Craig Morton and company against his old team could have just held on to it a little bit and punched 1 or 2 more in, the Broncos might have won Super Bowl 12. But that's our number 2 moment. Again, non-Super Bowls. And now our number 1 moment, kind of alluded to it, but the drive. And John Elway fulfilling the prophecy, if you will, as the number 1 pick. The Broncos trade for him, of course, comes to town. We know his rookie year was so rough he had to be benched. He's lining up behind the guard to take a snap. We know all those stories. But as John was truly coming into his own, it's now the 86th season, and they are trailing 20-13 in the AFC Championship game in Cleveland, and they're able to take the ball 98 yards.
Touchdown, Mark Jackson. It took Elway 5 minutes and 6 seconds to complete the drive of the game.
Bones flying from the dog pound, but Elway's able to take them all the way down the field. There's even a penalty, but they're able to not only get in the red zone, get inside, and he connects with Mark Jackson of the Three Amigos for the game-tying touchdown, and then barefooted Rich Karlis would kick in the game winner as they would win 23-20 in OT. But it was all set up by the 98-play drive that started
98 yards.
98-yard.
A hell of a drive.
98-yard drive, the drive.
Yeah.
98 yards
98
with just a
yards,
couple
man.
minutes on the clock. I guess it started at 6:30.
In hostile territory.
In hostile territory. Or no, it started just a couple of minutes, I'm sorry. And then to go there into the dog pound, win, and go to your first Super Bowl. Again, we know that didn't go great. First Super Bowl with John Elway.
Yeah. Incredible moment, lives in infamy forever. Those guys still, when they get together, they reminisce over that stuff. I was in the alumni suite at the game for a couple minutes, and I saw Mark Jackson, I saw Rich Karlis. Those guys are still there coming around to these events because it matters so much to them. You know, when you start a drive at your own 1 or your own 2, it's an interesting thing because you go back down there and you huddle up in the back of the end zone, and all those fans behind you, they're this close to you. It is a very intimate moment when you're about to start what will be a 98 yard drive, and I'm sure those guys that were in that huddle remember all those faces of those Clevelanders who eventually 6 minutes later got really depressed.
Yeah, 5:32 on the clock.
5:32.
So, and then he connects with Mark Jackson at the 38-second
and
mark.
so that was John Elway's 4th season?
83 season, 84 season, yeah. Season number 4 for John Elway.
And that was his official kind of coming out party, right?
I think, yeah, at that point.
Yeah.
Because Dan Marino had already made it to the Super Bowl. Dan Marino went to the Super Bowl in year 2. Jim Kelly, we know, started in the USFL. And then by the time the Bills really got going, John Elway had already been to a couple Super Bowls, plus that Marino Super Bowl. But so from that vaunted 83 class, this is where John Elway said, hey, I've been carrying the Broncos. We've got a good team. Now let's go to the Super Bowl. And they come away with a 23-20 win. Again, that was a 15-play drive.
Wow.
That's pretty remarkable, the drive. And that's why, again, non-Super Bowl moments, that is our number 1 playoff moment in Broncos history. And so the real question now becomes, when the Broncos go to Buffalo, can Bo Nix and company author a moment that could potentially supplant any of those? Only one way to find out, and we will Sunday at 11 o'clock Mountain Time, but the top 5 moments so far are pretty tough to beat.
Yeah, those are ours. If you guys have a different one, if we missed one or you want to reorder it, go ahead and do so in the comments. But and we are holding our breath, crossing our fingers that Bo Nix and these Broncos deliver a moment that can be a top 5 moment. Maybe it can supplant one of those that we just mentioned.
He's Nate Jackson. I'm BK. Thanks for keeping all of your social channels locked into everything we do here at Guerilla Sports.